Welcome to the podcast. You might have guessed by the title of this week's episode. This week, we're chatting with Ali North. Ali, how are you?
I'm good, Rob. How are you?
The very best. I have to be honest, I'm kind of starstruck. Here, I've been a fan for the longest time. It's great to finally chat with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I was so excited to be able to bump into you at World this last year, and then now here I am.
Yeah. Oh, we had to grab a selfie of the moment too. Yeah, absolutely. Right, I've got so many questions, bass drumming orientated and everything, all your work with SFU, all of it. But first of all, I want to hear a little bit about your background. First of all, on piping and drumming. How did you first get started?
So I first started just by happenstance back in 2007. My family, who has no Scottish background whatsoever, we're actually predominantly Polish. And we just randomly decided, let's go to this Highland Games thing. No idea what it is. Let's try it out. Let's go to it. So we went to it. My brother had been trying for years to get into some sort of music, hadn't really found something that worked. I've been playing music since I was 8 years old. I started on piano, then went to clarinet, did bassoon. And at the time when we were going, I was actively playing bassoon and trombone and getting geared up for auditions to college. We bumped into Northwest Junior Pipe Band, had a little tent at the games, and they signed up my brother for bagpipes because they figured after he had tried out all of these other instruments that clearly bagpipes was the next, iteration of trying out
Yeah,
music.
that's the obvious
So
choice, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Definitely the easiest instrument. Let's stick them on that. So
Yeah.
I really wanted to learn. They said, nope, you got to focus on your college stuff. Teenager, wouldn't listen to them. So I, would go along to the lessons. And I bumped into what ultimately became my teacher, Marcy McCory, who gave me a couple tenor sticks and said, here, can you do some flourishes? I'm like, sure, yep. So just kind of did some flourishes. She goes, great, you can read music. I'm like, yep. She's like, okay, great. We're going to Scotland this year, and I need another tenor drummer for my corps. So I was part of the
Wow.
very first trip that Northwest Junior took to Scotland in 2008, where we played in, I believe it was Novice Juvenile, and I think it was either sixth or fifth in our group.
I think, yeah,
That
I do
was,
remember the band actually
yeah,
placing in the prizes. Yeah,
yeah,
there you
yeah.
go. Mm.
So I went from zero to competing in a grade four pipe band in 3 months, and
Wow.
then
That's
did all of
fast.
that. I
Yeah.
only got one more year eligibility as a junior player before graduating out of the band, and then I started playing with our Memorial organization the next year in their grade three.
Yes.
Still on tenor. I had been trained from the get-go as a bass drummer as well, because that way, in the event that our bass drummer wasn't able to make something, I could go and play bass.
I see. Yeah.
Um, so I went to RMM, still on tenor. I was part of that group in 2012 that went to Worlds, that then won the grade three event and was promoted to grade two. And then in 2017, I finally got the opportunity to switch full time to bass, which was the best thing that I could hope for. I'd always loved bass, but just never had the opportunity to actually compete on bass. Little gigs here and there, but nothing, permanent because there's
Yeah.
only one bass per band. So you got to kind of wait. But since RMM is part of the SFU organization, I've been with the organization as a whole since 2010. So had for a long time been kind of around the SFU group.
Yeah. I see. And then I think I was reading the program actually from your concert Generations, and it did mention in there that you'd stepped into the band just last year in 2022.
Yes,
Ali,
yeah.
what an introduction. Wow.
Yeah, so coming out of COVID, SFU's bass drummer before then decided that they're ready to step away. So they had an interim bass drummer for the 2022 year, who had been a long time player as a tenor drummer with the band.
Mm.
She unfortunately had a back injury that became much more apparent that it was really impacting her ability to carry the drum and everything like that. Much later into the season. So Reed got a hold of me 75 days before Worlds and said, I need a backup bass drummer.
75 days.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah, so it was the end of May, and he said, all right, I need you to learn all the sets, just in case. We want you to basically be the
Yeah.
backup goalie to a hockey team where you probably won't play, but you're ready to go in a moment's notice. I'm like, okay, got it, no problem. So,
Yeah.
I was also still competing with RMM2 at the time as well on bass. So we kind of finished out the season early for them in order for me to focus on SFU.
Yeah.
because we knew just in case, like we wanted to make sure that SFU was going to be healthy going into Worlds just in case.
Yes.
Um, by chance, also again, in all of the weird string of events, Northwest Junior was going to Scotland that year, and so I was already going with them as one of the instructors because I have since 2015 come back and have been teaching with Northwest Junior.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I was going to Scotland anyways, and that wasn't even part of Reed's plan originally. It was just supposed to be I was just supposed to kind of learn the music and fill in here and there. And I was like, oh well, I'm also going to Worlds, so I'll be around.
You'd be there anyway.
Uh,
Yeah.
and so I spent my whole summer doing nothing but practicing. My Saturdays in particular, I think I was practicing, 8 to 10 hours a day
Oh, wow. That's a
to make sure I
lot.
had all that music.
Yeah. Wow.
um, so we got to Worlds, and then unfortunately, the bass drummer got COVID the Wednesday before Scotland before Worlds.
Oh no. I was going to
And
ask what happened then. 'Cause, yeah,
yeah,
it's never
so
good news, if you have to
right,
bring a backup in. Yeah.
exactly. So it all worked out that I was around, I was in the
Well,
neighborhood.
yeah.
So they had me fill in on bass on the Wednesday and hadn't told me yet. They just kind of were like, "All right, you go play for the day." So I was practicing all day long. That was the first time, particularly that video that came out of us on the green.
Yeah,
And
we filmed that.
that was my very first time in
Yeah.
Scotland on the bass for SFU.
Oh, we were so excited by that. We were wondering,
Yeah.
who's that? And that, yeah, but there you go. That was your first run with the band actually on the park.
I mean, I had been on the base a couple of times when we were back home, and I
Mm,
did actually get the chance to play 2 runs at our last Highland Games before we went to Scotland, just in case. I
right.
very gently bullied my way into saying, "Could I get a run, maybe two at Seattle before we head out, just in case?" Because I'd hate for
Yeah.
something to happen. And then my first run is at the green, and that would be just like could be a train wreck. I want to avoid that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
as I was sort of sitting there thinking, I don't have a lot of time to be ready for Worlds, but the very minimum, I don't want to let the band down. However,
No.
that works out.
Yeah.
So,
So stepping into that role in one of the biggest weeks in piping and then to walk away with the sash for the first time, that's bound to
yep.
have been an intense period of time for you, Ali.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, at the same time, honestly, I had a lot of kind of imposter syndrome for the last year because it sort of felt like I had handed in the group project with my name on it. Everyone had put in all of this work ahead of time. I stepped in the last 48 hours and then we get the sash. So I kind
Mm,
of had this moment of, did I really truly earn it? So actually coming back this last year and securing it again was really, really, really affirming for me to know, yeah, it's you earned it. It's
it's
okay.
deserved. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I have to say, I know I can understand those feelings. As you say, you stepped in at a last moment there, but listening to the performances of SFU, especially from a drumming perspective, outstanding. It's been so enjoyable listening to you guys. So I need to talk about your drumming then. Clearly, you have a musical background because you have your own sort of musical voice in there. Um, your approach to bass drumming, then, how do you approach it then from a musical standpoint? Is it rhythm first, music first, combination of both?
Well, obviously I get my scores from Reed and then, first take a look at them and I'm listening, the way that I was trained even from the get go by Marcy was you can't ever hope to understand any of the midsection scores unless you know the snare part and the piping part, period. Because we
Right.
are the link between the two groups. And so if you don't know both parts, then you shouldn't be in the circle.
There you
so
go. Yeah.
um,
Sound advice. Yeah.
So
So
Marcy always taught me, and it's what I teach my students as well. She also still teaches in the Northwest Junior, that you need to be able to hum the piping parts, and you should be able to kind of, in your own way, sing the snare part. Like you should know how it goes, so that way, regardless if you're joining the pipers and the snares aren't there, or you're joining the snares and the pipers aren't there, you can immediately just jump in and know where you are.
there you go. Yeah, that's really sound advice. Now, there's plenty of bass drummers I've played with throughout the year who just see their role as like a metronome. I'm there to keep time. But I
Yeah.
think what we're finding now, especially in the upper grades, grade one, grade two, grade 3A, even, we're starting to see bass drummers develop their own voice and sound. Is that something that you actively worked on yourself, Ali?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, we are sort of the metronome. We're the heartbeat of the pipe band. We have this big, low, booming sound.
Yeah.
Um, but we're not just playing notes, we're playing music. And we have to always keep that in mind that even if at the end of the day you're hitting all four beats of the Strasbe and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, you can do a lot more with it than just monotonously playing four beats.
That's it. Yeah.
Um, I took a lot of my inspiration from Catherine Tawes, now Catherine Martoni. But so when I was first trying to figure out what my personal style was, I would just sit there and watch endlessly videos of anything I could find of her, to figure
Yeah.
out, how was she hitting this? Where was she hitting this? What's the sound she's getting? That sort of thing. And really, honestly, mostly the arm motion to make sure that I was getting it. Because initially I wanted to be just like her. I mean, she was in my backyard. That's who I grew up watching.
I see.
Even though I started a little bit older age, but that was who I watched, and I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. And then over the years, it's now morphed into my interpretation of the music. But I still like to harken back to kind of old school bass drumming, where you'll see it's not as common. Is I do a lot of upward swing motion,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is much more of like old school bass drumming. And so kind of doing a mix of the upstrokes and downstrokes get very different sounds off of your drum. And so, and it's what I teach my students, particularly for like Strasbe idiom, is if you just do down, up, down, you automatically will get a Strasbe idiom without any effort whatsoever.
That's it. You're strong, weak, medium weak. That just
Yeah,
comes naturally. Yeah. So
exactly.
I have to say, the Generations concert, I did mention it earlier, but being in the audience for that was just amazing. What was it like being on stage that night, Ali?
Um, I mean, I know that you use this word probably a half million times when you were doing your podcast for the World's Days, but
Oh,
incredible,
the incredible. Yeah,
incredible, and wow! I think were
there
the
you
two
go.
main words there. Um, but no, it was, especially with the Armadillo, a bigger location. Not that, I'm
Yeah.
sure the Royal Concert Hall also would have had the same, awe-inspiring moment of like, oh my gosh, I'm on this stage and I'm doing this. But
Yeah.
there's all these extra tiers that go beyond where you can even see for the Armadillo, and they just keep going up and up and up with seats.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just hearing like the roar of the crowd every time we would do a set, and it still is different playing on a stage than obviously when you're outside. So
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it was so much fun, that the time period just whizzed by. Like I was like, oh, it's 11 o'clock at night now.
That's it. Yeah. You guys were total rock stars then at that point. I think, everyone really enjoyed the show. For me, musically, I think the band were absolutely singing. And there was a few highlights for me that I want to talk to you about. That wasn't really unpacked as part of the show, it was sort of in the program and all the rest. And Bob did talk about it a bit on stage, but one of the biggest talking points on the night was the desert medley that you guys played. Oh my God, the
Yeah.
roar of the crowd that come up after that. What was it like playing that?
Well, you know, in terms of like the actual music itself,
Mm,
we had this score that was written much more traditionally and from yesteryear. So
yeah, yeah,
when we were trying to put it together, I had to keep reminding myself, don't do anything fancy, don't do any additional
yeah,
stuff, which was kind of nice in a way. I didn't have to like really overthink the set within reason, of course, but
yeah,
it
yeah,
was more of thinking about trying to be respectful of the time period that this medley came from. So
mm,
you're having a much more simplified structure for the bass part. It's no less impactful. It's just very different than what I currently play.
yeah, yeah.
So it took a little bit for us to get together, the whole thing, because we're so used to doing our SFU thing, and
There you
instead it
go.
was,
Yeah,
we want to be respectful of the time period this set came from, including sticking Reed at the far end. And we
yeah,
purposely picked the youngest snare drummers of the corps to play. So all
yeah.
the individuals that were on the stage outside of Reed were the youngest players in our corps, and we purposely did that because of
I
the
see. There you
rules of
go.
medley.
That was one of the things that we were talking about this afterwards. You know how pipe banders do. We all talk about every single set. But that was the one that came across as like everyone's favorite. They were like, but it sounded like a bit of a time capsule. Like it really took us back on a journey. It was so enjoyable. So the difference from that music then to what we're playing now in the modern day, I don't know. It's just such a different world now, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, back then, the thing is, you can actually find, I don't know if it's specifically that medley, but one of the medleys from around that same time period from Dysart.
Hmm.
They have videos of it online that you can find, and you can see the playing from both the snares, the bass, and the tenor. I think they fielded, I can't remember if it was one or two tenors during that
Can't
kind of time
remember
period.
now. Yeah, yeah,
But either way, the tenor and the bass kind of have like these hard, almost like look kind of like tenor mallets, even for the bass drummer.
yeah, yeah,
And so they have this, almost kind of like marching band or like DCI kind of like hitting style. So it's very different
yeah,
than our big,
yeah.
huge beaters that we have now. So, um,
That's it. There was no room for subtlety then with the
right, right.
midsections.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So that's one of the things I want to talk about, and that's your technique that was really kind of drew my ear this year. Is your own technique with using like chokes and stuff. There is even in points where you change the tone of the drum somehow, some sort of magic or witchcraft or I don't know what it is you're doing, but
I'll
I
take
have
witchcraft. Witchcraft sounds
yeah, there you
great.
go. But I have noticed it. Is this something that you're bringing into the bass drum voice now? You know, these like chokes and rhythm changes. It's been really
Yeah.
unique. Yeah.
So I have I'm a little bit stuck in my ways in terms of what should or shouldn't be on a like pipe band setting bass drum. So I'm personally
Mm.
not one for like a whole bunch of roughs or a lot of the really crazy stuff. Personally, that's my personal, thing for it. But a few
Mhm.
chokes here and there isn't an issue. A few rolls here and there isn't an issue. So, you're probably never gonna see me do a rough in the middle of the green. But doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean that might not happen at some other point in my, solo career, but it's not really as much of a thing for me. But really, particularly in terms of the tone that comes off my drum,
Mm.
is every note that I play, what I hear in my head is a different pitch. So as far as like when I
Right.
play, I imagine that my drum can make any number of notes on a scale.
Mm-hmm.
And so that changes how I hit my drum where I'm brushing versus like pulling the note directly out versus up. And that
Right.
changes the pitch for everyone else to hear because I'm hearing it in my head as, oh, I need this note to be higher. I need this note to be lower. I
I
need this note to be a little
see.
less resonant or more resonant.
Yes.
So incorporating my arms as both a showpiece to like highlight what the music is doing, as well as getting a different tone on the drum is always my goal.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I have to say, it's been an absolute pleasure watching you this year. It's been fantastic. And congratulations on lifting that sash again. Well deserved, for sure.
And we moved up two placings as a band too. We got
Well,
fourth this year, which was very, very exciting as a band.
there you go. Yeah, no bad thing by any means. Exactly. It's an ultra
Sorry that we
competitive
didn't.
grade.
I was gonna say, I'm sorry that we didn't hit your predictions though. I know you had us as the fan favorite, so
I did. I
which I do
did.
appreciate.
Yeah. I honestly, was watching performances leading up to the. I thought, hey, these guys are cooking. So, hey, there we go. I give us a shout. Right. Well, I have to get into other questions then. Obviously, with playing the bass drum now, one of the biggest bands in the world, it's, a big role of responsibility. But a lot of people look up to you as an inspirational figure. You are a woman, but playing at the top flight, lifting prizes. And a lot of people are now looking to you and possibly lifting the bass sticks for the first time. We're starting to see a lot of female bass drummers coming through now. Is that something you're noticing yourself, Ali?
Yeah, I would say probably about half of the students that I have, both in Northwest Junior as well as my private students, are women
Hmm.
for base students. I think it's honestly, it starts at the home as well, where people are saying women can do anything that they want to do, which is great. And so you have
Yeah,
these kids that oh, I wanted to go play bass. Great. Here's a pair of sticks. Let's go.
there you
And
go.
as you said, with myself in the position that I am, seeing individuals that look just like you is really, really important. And
Yeah.
so, just the other day we had the open house for Northwest Junior, and the first thing they saw is that half of the instructors are women. And so
Ah,
they
there
go,
you go.
oh, okay, there's people that look like me that I can do the same thing as them because they look like me.
Yeah.
Um, so
Oh, it's honestly, it's such a great trend at the moment, and we've been noticing, that there's been an ongoing discussion, I guess, with the National Piping Centre running a big survey and everything involving women in pipe bands, and ourselves in Rab Show, we've been talking about it too. Why aren't there as many women pipe majors in the world, for example? But we are starting to see numbers starting to increase now. So if you don't mind me saying, you are kind of an inspiration for a lot of folk now looking, going, I could do that as well, or I want to have a go at that. Yeah. So keep up the good work from that regard, Ali, for sure. No
Thank you.
pressure.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I have to say, I mean, obviously winning the Sash was a huge moment this year, but actually one of my favorite moments this year was there was that photo of me that flashed up on Facebook like the Friday night when we were warming up.
Hmm.
I think it was from We Love Pipe Bands. And one of the comments on it was from a woman who was tagging another, I'm assuming a girl, on it saying, "Yeah,
Hmm.
see, women can play bass drum too." And I was
Ah,
like,
no
done.
way.
I was
Oh,
like,
that's
done.
brilliant.
That's all I care about. I was like, I don't care what the results are for the rest of the weekend. I've got
I
that.
love that. That's fantastic. So then I have to ask you, well, I do talk to a lot of inspirational people here on the pod, yourself included. So who inspires you in your music then? You did mention earlier on you look up to a particular bass drummer. Is there anyone else in the piping scene that you look up to?
I mean, I love seeing anybody who is, I mean, other women in pipe bands, of course.
Yeah.
Of course, love seeing any women in pipe bands, particularly at the highest echelons of playing. I love seeing differently abled individuals playing in pipe bands. I love seeing Katie the Wheeled Piper. I love seeing Austin, who is
Yes.
playing with St. Thomas this year. And
Hmm.
I love that these pipe bands are also saying we can have anybody in pipe band because pipe
Yes.
band is supposed to be for everybody. Um, so I love seeing individuals like that out there. They inspire me to keep going. And then on top of the women who are competing, those that are actually mothers and expectant mothers on the field. This year in SFU, we actually had one of our tenors was pregnant. She's due in about a month.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There
and
you
that's awesome.
go.
I remember a few years ago, Inverary had the same thing. We've
Hmm.
had pipers in our band as well who were expectant and were playing at Worlds, and that's awesome that you can
Yeah.
literally gestate a whole human being while also
There you go.
also be out there winning awards at the highest levels. So
Absolutely. It is possible. That's it. And as you say, definitely inspirational figures for sure. Yeah. So I have to say a huge thank you for joining us on the show this week. It's been a real pleasure hanging out. But we will be having a future conversation, I think, about women bass drummers. I think this is definitely a trend that we want to see continue rolling into this next season. And I don't know, would you be up for joining us for a chat about that?
absolutely,
You up for that?
absolutely.
There you go. Excellent. We'll have to gather a whole dose of you together and then talk about bass drumming. Not a bad thing. Yeah. So I don't know. I have to ask about generations again. Obviously, there's rumors flying around aplenty. I'm not going to ask you, is there going to be an album or anything? But I have to ask about your favorite moment in the show. Have you got any particular favorite set?
So first answer the albums bit. The answer is I don't know. I will say though, at least that, yeah, honestly, I don't even know yet. I
Yeah.
will say though that I did record the entire thing with my
Oh,
fancy recording stuff. So there
nice.
are audio clips that exist, but I don't know what's going to
Ooh.
happen with them. So, but I will
Okay.
throw that little carrot out there. We'll see what happens. I have no idea though.
There you go. Wait and
So
see.
those may stay under wraps, but they do exist. In terms of my favorite parts of the concert, probably two of them, or maybe three. I'll go for three.
Okay.
One being that my kind of bucket list tune to ever play was Beaches of Harris, and those amazing
Oh, come
things.
on.
I was like, done.
What? Oh, man.
So it's
Yeah.
the bass part is certainly nothing like crazy or out there or
No.
syncopated, but it is so key to the part to the whole
Yeah.
suite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Playing the Cosmos Cascade opener before we rolled
Yeah.
into our brand new medley. And
Mm-hmm.
then another one that I'm rather partial to is actually the Halo set because I was actually one of the individuals that
Oh,
wrote it.
man, that was incredible. Yeah, that
So
was definitely another highlight for sure.
yeah,
So, yeah.
the setup for it originally is just a piping piece,
Mm.
and so the pipers had started working on it And when I realized that it was supposed to be from the video game, I was like, oh, hold on, there's a whole bunch of drumming in here. And so
Yep.
Alan says, okay, well, get me something. I was like, all right, done. So I wrote him that drumming part. And then with help some of the feedback from some of the other guys in the core. And so that set was I
Oh,
say that I
brilliant.
influenced it the way that I did. So
Oh, fantastic. So, yeah, I don't know. There was way too many highlights in the show. We mentioned the Desert Medley, so many other sets in there. If anyone was there in the audience to see the show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Such an iconic show. So, congratulations on that front as well. Yeah. Well, rolling forward into 2024 now, obviously, SFU, you guys on a bit of a break right now, or are you preparing already for next season?
no, we like to take a nice good break. A combination of it gives individuals time to take actual vacations and do what they want to do.
Yeah.
We start kind of getting back into things, usually around in the next month or so. Sort of depends on the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the next month or so, we'll start getting back to it. I'm sure we'll start having some more conversations sooner rather than later about when we want to get back in and that sort of thing. Our first gig is Remembrance Day in November.
Yes.
So we always start getting stuff going
I see. There
by
you go.
November for sure.
Excellent. Well, Ali, again, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. It's been great talking to you. And yeah, thank you for the music. It's been such a great year.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure, we'll get catching up with you again, no doubt, as we have this other podcast on bass drumming. So we'll have to drag you back in again for that one. So thanks so
I'll
much,
be
Ali.
happy to come in. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.